to @podcastingmorningchat on YouTube. All right, LinkedIn, I'm not waiting for you anymore. Here we go. Oop, I almost did it. It's weird. It defaults to the wrong page on my Rodecaster. All right, here we go. Good morning, podcasters. Today is Tuesday, May the 5th, 2026. And today, we're designing your podcast for someone discovering you for the very first time. What should they hear, click, watch, or understand before deciding to stick around and become a regular listener? So if you're listening live on Clubhouse, hit the share button, top right-hand side of the screen, and share it however Clubhouse lets you. And if you're catching us via podcast, YouTube, etc., please share this episode with a fellow podcaster. And now give us about 30 seconds, and we'll get things rolling. Thanks for being here. The Podcasting Morning Chat is powered by Ironic Media, helping podcasters launch, polish, and grow great shows. And by Content Creators Accountant, helping creators build real business behind their content. Good morning again, Podcasting Morning Chat. Thank you so much for being here. I am your host, Mark Ronick, and currently on stage with me, as I am frantically inviting people on Clubhouse to come join us, my co-hosts, Ralph Estep, DR Fay, Sid Meadows, Alex Baelish, and BC Babbles. BC, DR, and Ralph are BC, Ralph, and DR are all on the video stream. If you want to catch us there, just go to podcastingmorningshow.com/join us. And I was just pausing because I was thinking, did I say good morning again, Podcasting Morning Chat, when I opened up the show? I think I did. I'm so used to saying that. Oh, well. C'est la vie. And welcome to Gabe and Rich in the Clubhouse audience. Appreciate you being here. I want to say bright and early, but 8 a.m. doesn't feel like bright and early anymore. I know I used to say that at the 7 a.m. hour. It feels a little different. But before we go any further, I want to first remind you about our Spotlight series that we're introducing to our community. If you'd like your podcast to be featured on the Podcasting Morning Show for free, submit a 60-second clip about your show, something that gives people a real feel for your podcast. If we select it, we'll play your clip on a future episode, we'll share what stood out to us, and we'll introduce your show to a community of podcasters and creators. So just go submit your clip now at podcastingmorningshow.com/spotlight. And again, I'm encouraging that you please, as the host, you introduce us to the show instead of just giving us a random clip from a random episode, because I think that might do you justice a little bit more in this context, the way that we're sharing your podcast with our community. So do that. Again, that's podcastingmorningshow.com/spotlight. It is of no cost to you to do. This is just a service we want to provide to our community to put you in the spotlight, to get the word out there, to maybe get you a few listeners in the process. Okay, so speaking of new listeners in the process, today we're talking about something that might be quietly costing you new listeners. A lot of podcasters are working really hard to get discovered. They're sharing the clips, they're posting the episodes, they're asking people to check out the show, and trying to get in front of new audiences. But discovery really is only part of the job, because once someone finds you, they still have to make a decision. Where do they start? Do they listen to the newest episode? The first episode? The trailer? The episode with the guest that they recognize? The one with the title that sounds interesting? And if that answer isn't obvious, a lot of people won't dig around. They'll just move on. So today's conversation is about your podcast's entry point, the doorway into your show, if you will. The obvious first step that gives someone who's brand new to you that signal that, yes, this is the one. Because your podcast may have great episodes. It might have some great conversations. It might have real value inside it. But if you're a new listener and you don't know where to begin, they may never hear the episode that would have made them care. So let's dig in with my first question today. When someone says, check out my podcast, what do you usually do next? So put on your listener hat, not your podcaster hat for a minute. When someone says, check out my podcast, what do you usually do next? If they've convinced you enough to go check out the podcast. Yes, BC, did you have something, or did you put your hand up and then change your mind?
I was a little I pivoted a second because my initial thought was, well, first I'm going to reflect on whether or not in the moment am I already enjoying the episode. Like, have they already caught my attention, which you then threw into it. I'm like, oh crap, what's my next step? I'm not sure what the next step after that is, but I would say if I'm enjoying the show, if I like it, then I probably would go just real quick, see if they've got a website or however they're kind of housing it, and try to peruse from there.
Okay, fair enough. And I think, BC, you've just demonstrated one of the reasons why we're having this conversation today is because I think a lot of people think, okay, now what? Right? Like they go to the podcast, now what? Right? And your hesitation, I think, kind of proves that. We don't have a natural instinct to what to do once somebody sends us their podcast. So, Sid, I saw you had something, and then I see Alex did as well. And by the way, a good morning to Janaid, Bez, and Dave. I've already said hello to Gabe and Rich, who have joined us here on Clubhouse this morning in the audience. Thank you for being here. And a hello to Tim, who just walked in as well. Walked into the virtual room, if you will. Sid, what did you want to answer to that question? When someone says, check out my podcast, what do you usually do next?
So if they haven't already, and they tell me that they have a podcast, that my first question is, hey, tell me about your podcast. What's it about? Who's it for? Like, I want to learn about it, right? And if I'm interested in it, I'll do one or two things. Have a note in my notes app that says podcast, and I will go to Apple and I will grab the link for their podcast and I will put it in my notes app. That's just a way for me to remember to go check this out. I might add a couple of notes about why or who the person is, how I met them. Or I'll go into Apple and I'll actually go to their podcast and I'll hit play for a couple of seconds and then stop it, because then it shows in my bar that I need to finish listening to it, and it'll stay there and it will remind me to go back and listen to it. So I take action to either copy the link or start to listen so I can go back and listen to it later.
All right, cool. So, all right, that's cool. So let me keep it going. I'll have some follow-up questions here in a minute. Alex, I think you wanted to chime in. What do you usually do next when someone says, check out my podcast?
Tell them to go to your best episode that you think is your best episode. For my daughter's podcast, it's episode 4. That's the award-winning one that we did. And then go from there. On the other side, for the one that I used to do for a show, that's a little bit more difficult because it's more of an accompaniment to the show that we're reviewing, so they can kind of pick it up. But what I tell people is we've done a rewatch. So if you want to, start with episode 1, that's fine. But you want to go episode by episode, we've done a rewatch. Again, the average podcaster listener, I should say, or the people that aren't in this room that are really into podcasting, they want a recommendation, just like they would if it was an Amazon. Oh, I got this new thing. I got this. Maybe I'm overthinking it or not overthinking it enough. But put your best foot forward. That's all. Whatever your best podcast is, and it's probably not number one. Most number one episodes are probably one of the worst podcasts, I think, for a lot of people, because they're still trying to get their groove. But find a collection that you are proud of and recommend that. Don't make them try to find it. It's not. I know we're all about this. Figure it out yourself. No, people don't want that. They don't have time. Just give them what they want to hear.
Yeah.
Instead of screwing around trying to be all creative, don't be creative. This is what it's about. Cut to the chase.
All right. So Alex says, send your best episode. Put your best
Or-
foot forward.
Or you're, build up. Say, if you really want to understand the podcast, listen to this one and maybe this one. Give them some choices that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fair. All right, cool. So, and Gabe in the chat says, my first episode was with Janaid. Hope it wasn't garbage.
Well, you know what? If you have Janaid, then of course it's going to be good. But for the rest of us,
That's right. That's right. Well, let's go to Janaid, who's on stage, and then we're going to hear from Ralph next. Janaid, good morning. Welcome to the stage. What do you want to add to all this?
Good morning. And Gabe, I want to point out to Gabe, that was not your first podcast either. It might be your first episode, but not your first podcast. Just like Billy yesterday shared about how when he launched his new podcast, he had already done 2 podcasts before with several episodes. So that's the other thing that you want to look into. What I usually get asked is, "Hey, what's your best episode that we should go listen to?" And if somebody says, "Hey, go check out my podcast," I was like, "Hey, I would check if they have a website because I want to make sure that they're taking control of their presence online, right? Having a website lets you do that because if the podcast platform pulls and you want to send people to one place, so then they have the choice to say, or not the choice, they have the direct access to be able to listen to the episode, not worrying about, oh, is it on Apple Podcasts? Is it on YouTube? Is it on Spotify? Those then, drive people even mad. And, well, okay, now I gotta go remember to look into it. So having a website is something that I will always check if they have a podcast for their podcast. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah, you're welcome. And I think that, Janaid, part of that might be because you are a podcast professional. You do this, you help podcasters in different ways, and you know that having the website and going to check the website is a thing that we do because we want to make sure the podcaster is properly set up for success, right? So, but I think that that's probably true to the average podcast listener too, is they may want to gravitate to a website first in order to really get to know the podcast. And we'll get more into those different types of entry points here in a minute. I'm going to go to Ralph, and then I have a follow-up question I want to go to Sid with. So stand by, Sid. And Ralph, good morning. What did you want to add to all this?
Good morning, everybody. I feel like we skipped a step here.
Okay.
Because I feel like the question, maybe I misunderstood the question, but the question to me is, how do I get somebody to have interest in my podcast?
No, that was not the question.
Okay, then I apologize, because my whole thought was, if we want somebody to go find us, we got to sell them on the benefits of it. And that's what I put in the chat, is I think we need to start off with an intention of, how do we get them interested? I think you're going to hit a lot of friction if you say, well, go check out my podcast. Who cares? But if you give them a reason, I'll give you a great example of this. My daily show, I talk about it all the time. We might be out at a restaurant or something like this, and the waitress will come up and I'll say, hey, do you listen to podcasts? And she'll say, oh yeah, I listen to podcasts. I said, do you ever struggle with money? Does money ever become an issue for you? She goes, yeah, all the time. I said, I talk about just that on my podcast every single day. 9 times out of 10, they'll say to me, what is your website? How do I get your podcast? Because I changed the dynamic a little bit. I flipped it and I said, I want them to need my podcast. I want them to want my podcast. Where I send them, to me, is a secondary piece to getting them, have this voracious diet for it in the first place.
I like that. Yeah. And I like that strategy, Ralph, especially because I think it's a safer bet to approach somebody who serves at a restaurant, because a lot of times those people are struggling a bit with money, or at least on a very strict budget, because let's face it, servers don't always make the best money depending on the restaurant that they work for. So yeah, that's a good move.
Well, and the whole point is, I always say, go to where your audience is. So if you're trying to build your show, go figure out where your audience is and provide them with something that would benefit them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And shout out to Junior and Yvonne in the audience right now. Appreciate you guys both being here this morning on Clubhouse. Sid, I said I was going to come to you. I appreciated your answer. And my follow-up to that question about what do you usually do next, when you discover that new show, when you have gotten enough information to want to go check it out, do you usually listen to the newest episode, the trailer, the most popular, or whatever catches your eye?
That is a really great question. I typically will scroll through it and look to see if there's an episode title that catches my eye, and then I will listen to that. I don't go all the way to the trailer, depending how long they've been podcasting. I don't go all the way back to the first episode. If I'm going to listen to one, it's probably going to be within the last 5 or 10 episodes. I'm not going to scroll that far. I'm not going to hit the see more button unless it's a topic I'm really, really interested in. Right. So I'm going to look in like the first 5 or 10, and hopefully there's a title there that catches my attention, and I'll click play.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that's a great callback to last Tuesday's episode when we talked about episode titles and how valuable those can be. Sid is going through the catalog once he's been encouraged to go check it out, and he's scrolling through to find what title is catching my eye. I think that's really important.
And to Alex's point, I'm not going to do a lot of work. Right. I'm not going to put forth a lot of effort. I've grabbed your show information. I've clicked the link, and I'm going to look quickly. Is there something that catches me? And if there is, I'm going to click play. If it doesn't, I'll come back to it later, but I'm just not going to do a lot of heavy lifting to listen to a show that may not be relevant to me.
Yeah. All right. That makes a lot of sense. And if anybody else wants to answer the question, you're more than welcome to. If you have a different answer than title searching, as far as that entry point for you. Yeah, go ahead, BC.
And I'm just, I do apologize. I don't know if anyone mentioned this yet. If I've enjoyed the show and they say, check out the podcast, what I might also do is check out, their socials. What clips can I find? What kind of viral moments can really kind of lure me in further into the show? What other topics can they show off to me without me having to explore their whole catalog and help me get a better idea of the culture of the show?
Yeah, that I like that answer too. And I think it's I'm just thinking about these entry points and different things. Look, every podcast does have a front door, whether the creator designs it intentionally or not. Right? For some shows, it's the latest episode. For others, it's the trailer or the website. Or to BC's point, maybe it's the social media page or a YouTube page. Maybe it's a pinned episode or a playlist, a clip, guest episodes. It could be a lot of things, even a recommendation from a friend. And I think that's actually the big one to think about here when we're looking at this. This is the perspective is like, sure, if you have the opportunity to speak to a podcaster and they're trying to convince you to go listen to their show, awesome. But a lot of times we get recommendations from friends, and those friends might just say, hey, have you heard this podcast yet? Like, you got to go check this out. I listen to this show every week and I can't get enough of it. But they might not tell you about a specific episode, or maybe even you ask and they just say, it doesn't matter. Just go listen to one. Right? So the podcaster, I think it's important for us as a podcaster to make sure we do have an intentional doorway for those people that are being introduced to our shows. And I think the problem here is that many podcasters haven't decided what their front door is. I was going to start with a question here for this segment, but DR has her hand up, so I wanted to just check in. DR, did you want to add something?
Yeah, you started out this question by saying, okay, leave the fact that you are a podcast professional aside and answer this question. To be frank with you, I don't think I can leave that aside.
I hear you.
I mean, the only reason why I am in podcasting is because several years ago, I started listening to podcasts with a different ear. I started asking questions like, why is the host still asking that question? The guest has answered that already. Why are they marketing this that way? This is insane marketing. Why? I kept asking all of these questions, and I realized, I think this is a producer's ear that I'm kind of leaning back on, and it's not like your regular Joe Schmo ear.
I hear you. I have a very hard time listening just as a listener. It's very, even down to just critiquing if it's a bad edit. I hear a bad edit or something.
Bad edit, bad sound, everything.
Yeah. I can't help it.
Yeah.
Ralph, did you want to add something?
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that, because my wife is somebody that doesn't get involved in podcasting much. And her and I were going to the grocery store the other day, and we started talking about she's learning about podcasting, And I said, you're a great person to talk to. I said, let me ask you a couple questions. I said, what makes you want to listen to a podcast? And she says, well, if it's a topic that I'm interested in. I'm like, okay, good. Because I think all of us in the content creation field, we're in this walled silo. Like we don't see the outside. And then I said to her, I said, well, how do you find that? She goes, well, I go to Chat GPT, and if I've got a particular topic, I say, give me the best podcast to listen to on that topic. I said, oh, that's interesting as well. And I said, so what you're really focusing on the title? She goes, oh yeah. She said, I just started listening to Joe Rogan. Most of his stuff is garbage, but if I see somebody I'm interested in, I'll go and click on it and listen to it. And I just thought, wow, what a wealth of knowledge from somebody that is not involved in the podcasting sphere. And I said, okay, well, what else do you? She goes, well, I like Spotify and I like this. And I was like, this was so enlightening to me because it was somebody that doesn't do it every day. And so my takeaway from that is, I think we need to spend a lot more time talking to our audience and asking them, what do they want from us? What is the entry door they want from us? Do they want a nice front porch? Do they want a nice trailer? Do they want all these other things? Because I think there's so much friction in that. But like, I thought that was really eye-opening. I think we all can learn from those things. So ask people that aren't in podcasting, kind of like what DR said, because I think all of us have a different ear now. We see things totally different, which I think blinds us to some realities.
Yeah, thank you, Ralph. And in a moment, I'm going to ask all of you, what do you think is currently the front door to your podcast? All right, so start thinking about that. What do you think the front door is to your podcast? And if you're for some reason currently not podcasting, but you're a part of this show, you can use this show instead. Okay, so but before I do, Alex, I saw you wanted to add something. So
No,
go for it.
just go on. Just go on.
You
Just
sure?
go on.
Okay. All right, no problem. So yeah, so let's go to you, Ralph, since we were just talking to you. What do you think is currently the front door to your podcast, and share which one we're talking about, since I know you have a couple.
Yeah, I think I'll use my daily financially confident Christian. My front door is my trailer. And I think that's really useful to me because I can send people to it. In fact, I just redid it and I launched that redone one yesterday, but it's the same trailer that I use on my website, that I use on my Facebook page, that I use on YouTube. And when you land on my website through Podpage, you see that same thing there. Because I want to have somebody say, oh yeah, I've got to listen to this because, oh, that he's talking directly to me. That's my thing. I want them to say, hey, this is a guy that understands me. This is just like I talked about at the restaurant. I'm doing the same thing with the front door. I want them to be so ravenous for my content that they go, I got to listen to 10 episodes. And that works. I'll tell you what, because I can look at my statistics and I have almost the same number of listeners every day, but my download numbers are increasing. So what that tells me is more people are getting more episodes. So that idea is starting to grow, Mark. But that's what I use as a front door. It's my trailer of here's what's in it for you. Not necessarily, oh, here's my best episode. It's here's what's in it for you, which kind of ties into what we talked about yesterday. I have a business mentality of I am trying to drive something here, and that's what I'm doing at the front porch.
Thank you, Ralph. And I'm loving these analogies, front door, front porches, etc. I'm enjoying that. BC, did you want to chime in? What do you think is currently the front door to your podcast?
Yeah, and I'll use like Caffeination Nation for this. And I think my front door for that show, which I try to make sure is evident in every kind of segment that I share or kind of every topic that I give to the episodes, is that I'm talking about someone's boss the way they wish they could talk about their boss on a public platform. Like I'm not employed by them, so I don't care. I'm going to talk about how their behavior sucks this way or that way, or how the conditions don't work for the employee for this reason or that reason. So I think that relatability of helping, ideally with the show, helping employees who are dealing with certain environments find a venting space to have someone who kind of sees where they are and who relates to it and tries to give them advice on how to navigate it is the open door, which is just the whole premise of the show.
Yeah, I like that. And I like the premise of your show, by the way, as well. You being that one. Do people send in stories about their bosses and then you respond to those?
I do make the CTA, like submit your story. It's always anonymous. I don't, unless you want the glory publicized, I'm like, it's always anonymous. I don't have that yet. I am encouraging people to do so. So I pull a lot of the stories that I get from Reddit for the moment, but CTA, Caffeination Nation, if you want me to talk about your boss, submit your story now.
I love it. All right. Awesome. We will do that. We will,
I have always wanted to do a podcast. It would be strictly a hobby podcast, but on customer service and because I've had a lot of years in customer service, and there are some brutal stories from, the customers that you deal with, but also your coworkers that are so messed up. So I think it would be a very entertaining podcast.
I think so too. I agree. All right. I know that Sid wanted to respond as well. Sid, yeah. So go for it.
So the question was, what's the front door to my podcast?
Correct.
And to me, that's my website, sidmeadows.com/podcast. Everything you want to know about the podcast is there. Every episode is listed there. You can see the headshot, the number, the title. You can click on it. I mean, everything about me relative to podcasts is on that landing page. And I share that landing page a lot. And if you Google me, that's probably one of the first things that's actually going to come up. So to me, it's my website. I'm not going to send you fishing on Apple or Spotify and you spell my name with a Y and not an I or whatever, right? I'm just going to send you to my website where everything is. And hopefully while you're there, you click the link to join our community and you become part of our email list.
Okay, I love that one. Yeah, and that's somebody who clearly has the intention behind their front door. I love that. Thank you very much for that, Sid. And by the way, we have somebody here on YouTube who will actually be a guest on this show coming up soon. I'll let Ralph explain that in a second. She says, "Good stuff, guys. I love the idea of asking non-podcast listeners for their insights. That feels more important as podcasting continues to get more and more mainstream." And yeah, Ralph, who is this mystery person?
Yeah, this is my publicist, Cindy Harrison, and she's going to join us on Tuesday to talk about how using publicity, and I love her thing, PR Shield, of how to keep you out of hot water when you run into those problems. So she's going to join us on Tuesday. So she's joined us here in the live show. So thank you for joining us, Cindy, and we're looking forward to our chat on Tuesday coming up.
Thank you, Cindy, for chiming in. Did anybody else want to share what's their front door? And if not, I'll share mine. I think for this show, there are a couple of entry points, and I'm going to admit that I don't know that I've leaned on any one of these intentionally, right? I know I set them up intentionally. So, for example, first of all, I will always send people to my website. So I guess in some ways that's the front door. If somebody wants to know more about my podcast, I say go to podcastingmorningshow.com, right? But now they've come to the front door. What does the front door look like? And the first thing technically they see is the logo along with a description of the show. But if they scroll just a little bit further, this is what I consider one of the first entry points, and that's the Our Favorites section. And this is something that Podpage provides as part of their podcast website services. And there's a link, by the way, my affiliate link in the show notes if you're interested in checking out Podpage. But the Our Favorites section is great because there's literally a toggle switch within the back end of your pod page that you can select any episode as a favorite. I think my mistake with using that section is I have too many episodes listed under Our Favorites. I believe that if somebody has come by request to the website, they might go there and pick one of that list, but I think it's my job to make that a little easier, a little more digestible. So I think I need less episodes in that section. But nonetheless, there is that section there as a getting started point. From there, I also have, I would say, our show trailer is definitely an entry point, especially for those who may have just gone straight to a platform like Apple or Spotify. Our show trailer is our second most listened to episode by a lot, really, probably by like double, maybe more. So our first, everybody knows, I say it all the time, our first most downloaded episode being our episode where we talked about Steve from Blue's Clues starting his podcast, which he's been doing now, I want to say for about a year, maybe almost a year. And I'd say lastly, I have this page that I don't talk about enough and that maybe needs to be revamped a little bit, but In our toolbar at podcastingmorningshow.com, I have a Grow Your Show page. This was a page that I used originally as a landing page for a campaign that I tested for the show last year. I need to revamp it, and I need to talk about it, because what that page does is it provides 3 episodes that I hand selected that I felt like could really help somebody take those next steps to actually growing their audience. And it starts with a welcome video of me introducing the person, the new listener for the first time, introducing them to our family, introducing them to the website and our show, and then telling them about the 3 episodes that I've provided for them to get started with. So I might change that page from Grow the Show to Get Started or something like that and start promoting it more. But I hope that these have given some of you some ideas. Maybe if you're not thinking about entry points, that gives you some ideas of maybe where you'd want to start or improve what you're doing. Ralph, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, and Mark, maybe we need to change the homepage for the Podcasting Morning Show and make it center a welcome video. Maybe that's what we need to do, because I could just see how inviting that would be if I went to the Podcasting Morning Show. Up pops Mark. Hey, thank you for joining us. Let me tell you about what we do here on the morning show. I think that would be an excellent entry point, Mark. So that might be something to think about. And if you're a podcaster, I mean, that's what I'm doing on my shows. Every one of my shows, I follow that same course, because if somebody's new to me, I want to introduce them, because a lot of what we do is relationship based. And if we can start to build that relationship right away, because if somebody just clicks on one of your episodes, they don't have any background. They don't understand why is Sid talking, why is DR talking, why is BC talking. That can be kind of off-putting a little bit, because you don't know who these players are. It's kind of like you joined in the middle of the show and you're like, what's going on? If you have some way to on-ramp them and sort of introduce them to the content, I just think that'd be a great idea. And then, Mark, I love what you're saying. Then you say, okay, if you're really getting started, here's the first 3 things you should listen to. And maybe we build something out sort of along the lines of, this is how the show works. Here's how the community functions. Here's how we want to get you involved in this. Oh, and by the way, if you're new to podcasting, here's what I can do to help you out, because then we're thinking about that business piece at the front end as well.
Thank you, Ralph. Yeah, and Jody Krangle in the YouTube chat says, careful with the stuff that auto plays. Totally agree with you, Jody. It drives me crazy when I land on a page and something just starts playing automatically.
Well, that's where I had that same problem, Mark, and I moved away from posting it on YouTube, and I use a product called Voomly. And with Voomly, I can create my own playlists, because that's the problem with YouTube is once you put one thing up there, then it automatically goes into this, array of different things. That's one of the benefits. And there's other products that do it, but I love Voomly because then I can put a playlist of just what I want them to hear in that order. So that's something, if you're a podcaster or a content creator, and YouTube's free, I get it, but this gives you the ability to really control the narrative. So that to me is just more beneficial.
I hear that. And I know there are some ways to go into certain YouTube videos and change that autoplay setting, because mine doesn't autoplay when you land on that Grow Your Show page at podcastingmorningshow.com. But I don't know with playlists. I don't play with them enough to know if you can turn on or off the autoplay, but I'm almost certain you could turn that off if you wanted to.
Yeah, I do that with Voomly on mine. Like I have a little button, you have to push play, and that's a decision point that you can make, because that is frustrating if every time you go to somebody's website, start, hey, welcome to, it's like, whoa, stop, dude, calm down a little bit.
Yeah.
So good point, Jody.
Yep. And Jody says what she really means is auto playing when someone arrives on the site, not what comes after. Yeah, that's the way I was interpreting that, Jody. Thank you. Appreciate it. Did anyone else want to chime in? I'm trying to look here. Junaid, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, absolutely. So excellent points on the different entry points and how people are introduced to. And Ralph, I'm going to implement the same thing for my Hacks and Hobbies podcast, because right now it's just a page. Here's the feature episodes and people get to self-select. But I like the idea of actually guiding them through that journey, listener journey. Something that I love what kit.com does, they have multiple landing pages for different people or different ICPs, I guess you could say. There's an ICP or a landing page for a musician. How can a musician use kit.com, which is an email marketing service? And then all of the language on that page is also geared towards, hey, your fans, your music, blah blah blah. So when you were mentioning, Mark, the featured page that you have of the podcast, maybe you can have different categories that people can go deeper into, just like on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You could say, hey, I don't know what I want to listen to, but I'm interested in the education category, or I'm interested into entrepreneurship category or whatever. So people can then self-select and go down that path of, hey, I want to listen to how can I grow my show, or how can I keep listeners on my podcast, how can I bring in guests on my show. So this could be different categories that you have 4 episodes specific to that specific topic. You know what I'm saying? Something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And that's something I take advantage of as well with Pod Page. You can categorize your episodes, and you can actually even put them into multiple categories. And I do that religiously. I think it's really important because when our listeners are coming to the website, they can, if they want, they could actually just search by category. So if they're looking for monetization and business development, they'll go to that category on the website, and then they'll probably find a lot of Money Monday episodes, even though we do have a Money Monday category as well, right? But there could be stuff if they're looking to improve their guest interviews, they might look for guest interview and insights as far as that section, that category on our page, etc. Yeah, so I think it's important to, if you have that ability, create those categories. Yvonne's been on stage waiting patiently. Good morning to you, Yvonne. Did you want to add anything?
Good morning. Well, I just want to say, I think you can have multiple entry points to your podcast. I have a welcome video on YouTube. I have a trailer. Of course, my website is definitely an entry point, and I have favorite episodes that are on the podcast page, although they're all the way down at the bottom. Um, I wrote a book, and that book could be an entry way to my podcast, because at the end of the book, I mentioned that I have a podcast. And social media, I consider that an entry point for my podcast as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say, Yvonne, if you had to tell somebody one entry point for your podcast specifically, what would it be?
I'd send them to my website, like Sid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, me too. Me too. And I got to say, calling back to what Ralph was saying, oh, Mark, maybe we should put a video on the homepage. I don't know why I hesitate about that. I can't.
I have a video on the homepage as well so I have a welcome video on YouTube, a welcome video on my website, and the trailer, which needs updating.
Are they all the same?
Podcast. No.
Okay, so they're unique to their platform.
Yeah, it's just like I created the one for YouTube more recently, and specifically thinking about how I wanted to welcome people on YouTube. I need to probably go back and look at my welcome video on the website, because it's been there for a while, and see how that's landing at this point. Because I feel like I'm morphing, we'll say. So I may need to make some updates.
Yes, and I think that there's something valuable about creating a unique video on those different platforms. I think it's showing, A, that you're making an effort, and B, you're catering to that kind of audience, right? Like theoretically, you could be making a YouTube video specific for a YouTube audience, and a website video specific to your website audience. And yeah, you're going to say very different things if you're doing it that way, right? If you're coming to my website and you see my welcome video, I'm going to probably tell you a little bit about the website itself, right? Like where you can find things, how you can get started, etc. That's going to look different than if I'm making a specific trailer or entry point video on a platform like YouTube.
Now, Mark, you mentioned you were hesitant to that. Let's talk about that for a second. So what is your hesitation? Because I don't take this the wrong way, but I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know that I get it either. I think maybe I am just tied to what a traditional website page would look like when you land on the homepage. Right. It's just like it took me a very long time to move away from long intros on my podcast. right? Like with lots of music and fanfare and a professional voiceover person. And like that, it took me a long time to move away from it because I felt like that's just how you do a show. Right. But times change and audiences change and you got to cater to it. And I think that could be the case here for the website as well. Just having some kind of welcome video. I get it. It makes total sense. I think it's just one of those locked in neural pathways in my brain that I got to just kind of clean over and start a new one.
I'm going to suggest a book for everybody. There's a book called Sacred Cows Make the Best Burgers. And if you're in business or thinking about dabbling in business, go read that book, because so many of us get stuck in this routine of, well, this is the way we have to do it. And I think, Mark, that's a little bit of what you're feeling right there. And when I've worked with other organizations and we've read the book as sort of a group building exercise, it's amazing how many things you think, well, why do I do this? Well, that's the way we've always done it. But that doesn't mean it's the best way to do it. Right. So just that book is one of the ones. I have a few books that I believe in. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. But those two books, I've got that one specifically, Sacred Cows Make the Best Burgers. It is one you won't want to put down.
Love that. Thank you, Ralph. Appreciate that. By the way, I failed to let you all know that we have an evaluation coming up this Thursday. So if you want honest, helpful feedback on your podcast, every other Thursday-ish, we review a real show from our community with the goal of helping that podcaster grow and helping everyone listening learn from it. This week, we're evaluating The Loud Quiet, a podcast about empty nest living, hosted by Rick and Clancy Denton. They are former clients of mine and current friends as well, and I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's feedback on The Loud Quiet, coming this Thursday, May the 7th.
I just got to laugh about what DR put into the private chat. She says, great, now I'm hungry for burgers. So I'm looking out my window here, and I've got cows out here in the pasture next to me, DR. So like I've got fresh beef right out the window. So I totally understand what you're saying.
I had a burger just last night. We made burgers. So nah to you, DR. Yeah. All right. BC, you wanted to add something as well.
Yeah, and I was going to say to your pause about putting a video intro trailer on your website, and I get it. We're far past the days of MySpace where you hop onto a website and music automatically plays. But one thing I did myself that I found I kind of had the same effect without the noise is instead create a silent kind of hodgepodge of action moments from the show. I created this great little reel of just my reaction to my guests and their more energetic moments, completely silent, no sound whatsoever. But I found that it still brought a lot of traffic to the website and a lot of exploration without having to do a whole full audio trailer element. So that could be an alternate for you. Yeah. If the concern is more audio based and somewhat intrusive audio based, if you get what I'm saying.
I do. And Jody puts in the oh, no, that was not Jody. That was Ralph. Did you say MySpace?
I did say MySpace. And I had the best music choices for anyone who did visit my MySpace back in the day. I'll just say that right now.
Is that ever coming back?
Past. Blast from the past.
It is. I feel like that there's somebody trying to make an effort to bring MySpace back. Yeah, I don't know. Jody in the chat did say, I have a video on my voiceover website, actually, but people do kind of have to look for it. It's lower on the page. Yeah, well, if you're going to do that, I would say, Jody, put that up toward the top. Why not?
Mine's in the hero section.
Yeah. Why not? I'm definitely going to consider using that. All right, look, I want to do this here. Let's see. We have 15 minutes. I want to try a little exercise with everybody if anybody is interested. A little live exercise for the room. So if I were brand new to your podcast, what episode, and I'm making that distinction very clear, what episode should I start with and why? Where would you send me to a specific episode? Anyone have any thoughts, or is the silence an indication?
Well, so Mark, I think that's a great thing to think about, because I think all of us need to build an intentional first episode. I don't think it's a good idea to say, well, go to this one, because I think you need to have the end in mind for that. So maybe you have an entry point episode that that it's sort of evergreen, but maybe needs to be updated frequently. I'll give you a great example of that. On my morning show, I just launched a thing called Faithful Fundamentals, which is using the words, the letters in faithful to define how to answer a particular question. So what I'm doing right now with my team is we're actually building that quote first episode to send somebody to, so they understand how Ralph talks about these things. So to answer your question directly, I think you have to be intentional about that and build that first episode with the end in mind of what you want your listeners to do and how they connect to the show, what the value is for them. I think if you just send them to, oh, go listen to my latest one, again, if they don't have context and they don't understand how you do the things you do, I'm not sure that's going to be terribly effective.
So, Ralph, do you have a first episode that you would send people to?
I'm working on it right now, actually, because I've kind of changed the way I'm looking at this. Now, I will tell you, with the Content Creators Accountant, I actually send them to the first episode because I built that with the intention of, hey, if you're new to this, here's who I am, here's what I do, here's what I promise to give you. Now, I've morphed a little bit and I've probably improved my performance side of that. So, but all that said, I think it's still valuable. So in that particular case, that one is the go-to one. It's the first one, so you understand. And those episodes actually, I feel like, build off one after another. So in that case, that particular show works really well.
Thank you, Ralph. And Sid wanted to chime in, and then so did BC. Go ahead, Sid.
So depending on who they are, so if I'm talking to them or I'm texting with them or whatever, depending on who they are, will depend on where I send them. So if they're a CEO of a company, I'm going to send them to one of my favorite CEO chats. If they're a dealer and own a dealership, I'm going to send them to one of my favorite dealer owner podcasts, right? If they're an interior designer, I may send them to one of the episodes about product development and how products are developed. So if I know who they are, I'm going to pick a episode to tell them where to start, so that the message in that episode will resonate with them, because the goal is obviously when they start listening to keep listening and to follow the show.
I love that answer. Thank you, Sid. I think that is quite intentional, right? It's really picking it based on who's asking, sharing a show that makes sense. And again, that's where I think categorizing your episodes is going to come in handy for you, because I don't believe that a lot of us off the top of our head, because based on some of the silence when I ask the question, I think if we don't have that answer off the top of our head, we got to think quickly. We only have a few minutes possibly to convince somebody to listen, or at least to send somebody to the right episode to listen to. So yeah, I strongly urge people to think along those same lines as Sid, and yeah, have certain types of episodes on the ready based on the people you're interacting with. All right, BC, you're up, my friend. Go for it.
So if I was going to direct somebody to Caffeination Nation, I would direct them to episode 34. And that's for a couple of reasons. For context, that episode discusses revoking resignations, mediation with narcissists, and job interview scams. One, because it's one of my more heated episodes, but again, it's one of those great, just talking realistically about situations like I mentioned, but also because that is, and I mentioned this a while ago when talking about my show, is that it's one episode off of which there is a caffeinated take, which is my premium content where I go on kind of a more unhinged response on a particular topic. So I would direct them to that episode 1 because they're going to relate to it. If they've been through job scams or having mediation with a narcissistic boss, or if they may have submitted their resignation too early and then wanted to change their mind for whatever reason, but also because I go into a more unstructured, I think more relatable, emotionally charged rant, which is premium content. So I think that would be that's a great opportunity to get them into the show. It gives them a more fully flushed out potential of what they can experience with the show, lead them potentially to become an early paid subscriber, at least for an episode, to check it out. And I had one more caveat for it as well. And I'm going to lose it here in the next 5 seconds, but that's my reasoning for that episode. So episode 34 would be my go-to direction for any new listeners of the podcast.
BC, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So you used the word unhinged. And I want to hear that. Well, I'm going to listen to one of those. But you are intentional in putting that behind the paywall. I'm wanting to understand what your thought process is there.
My thought process there is that, wow.
He wants to make money.
I want to make money. My thought process is, for any given episode of the show, I want to make sure that I'm taking the seriousness of any given situation and providing real actionable advice, like from my perspective, with my experience with the narcissistic boss, or wanting to leave a job, or trying to figure out this weird interview situation. What can I provide to the listener? And that's my kind of any given episode aim. But I also feel like there's a capacity to be more emotionally based and to just really kind of want to vent about one of the many pitfalls I think our hiring system, our job pool system has, whether or not it's job scams, whether or not it's going through. Personally, I've been through 10 rounds of an interview for a single company to be told no, I didn't get the job, but without any kind of feedback. And I'm the kind of person who will, despite all the time I've invested, I'll be like, thank you so much for the consideration. I enjoyed talking to you. Is there any kind of feedback you can provide? Because I want to be more prepared for the future, and get nothing in return. And, to have that moment of like, wow, I spent 10 interviews with you and you can give me nothing back that lets me know like what's going on. So providing that more kind of raw, relatable moment as a premium bit of content, I think is a great way to kind of emotionally draw people in who are looking for that more unfiltered. I need someone to rage with me about how the system just doesn't work right now.
But BC, can I interject something
yeah.
real quick? Because my concern is if I'm new to your show and the first interaction I have with you is go buy something, do you worry that chases people off? I'm not saying it's the wrong approach, because I love money. So I'm all about making money with your stuff. But I'm just wondering, before I get to know you well, is that a push that you worry about being too far a push right away?
No, and that's why it's not an immediate push in the episode. So I don't know I'm going to have a caffeinated take until I get to the story. So if I'm covering the story, reading it in the moment, and providing the feedback that I have already thought about, but if I find myself continuing to push and push and push, and I feel it coming on, that's when I'll stop in that moment and say, I think there'll be a caffeinated take for this topic. So come back later, or at least subscribe for free to the channel to keep an eye out for it. But it's never an opening pitch. It's never an immediate CTA. It's in the moment when I feel that a particular story is triggering me a bit more in the emotional sex. So it's kind of an opportunistic thing, but it's never the first CTA by any means.
Very cool. Thank you, BC. Thank you, Ralph, for those questions. All right, before we wrap up, I want to go here for a second. A lot of podcast apps naturally push the latest episode, right? That means that the latest episode often becomes the default entry point, even if it wasn't designed for a new listener. And I think that puts a lot of pressure on one episode, or at least it could. So I'm curious if you're feeling that pressure. How much pressure, and I'm asking this to all of you participating, how much pressure are we putting on the latest episode to represent the whole show? And I'll throw in this, are we thinking about that when we're putting out and constructing the latest episode? Do you feel like that's a lot of pressure? Anybody?
And Mark, one of the things that I love about True Fans with Sam Sethi is he actually allows you to pin a featured episode in his player.
Yeah.
And I think that's really a great idea. I would like to see more of the apps do that, because I agree with you. I think there's a lot of pressure, because what if it's not so great this week? Like you had an off day, or today's show just wasn't what you normally bring. It still provides value, but is it that go-to thing? Because like you've said, you might get one chance for somebody to click on that, hear the first 5 minutes or the first 2 minutes of that and go, oh, this clown's out of his mind. I'm not going to listen to this one again. Whereas if you can pin a featured episode that you really feel like you nailed a home run on, I think that would be more valuable, Mark. I think it's a very good point.
Thank you. And I am making a note here. We will put the link to True Fans, the podcasting hosting platform, in the show notes, but that's also truefans.fm. And I know our True Fans winner, who won a free year of subscription to True Fans, Austin is in the audience. Austin, if you want to put in the chat, I'm curious, have you started yet? Have you taken advantage? Would love to hear that.
And it's not OnlyFans.
No.
It's true fans.
True fans, not only fans.
I always feel like I have to say that whenever I hear.
I'll tell you what, my next question to all of you is going to be I guess it was going to be, for me, I was just going to share that I think this week, all of our shows, and last week for that matter, because we've only had 2 this week, last week and this week, I think any one of the episodes we've had could be great entry points for a new listener. I think that we've been having really strong conversations that could help a lot of podcasters. So I think any of our episodes from last week and this week, if those are the ones that somebody landed on first, I'd be perfectly happy with that. Yeah. All right. Any other final thoughts before I share my final thoughts here? All right. So I think, look, when we're talking about entry points and we're talking about, the front door, the front porch, etc., I think today's, I think we got to think about really putting our best foot forward. It's like our entry point is like a book cover, right? We want to make sure that people are understanding right away, that they're given something that they can take in and say, yeah, this is a good show. This is a show that I need, that I want, right? So we got to make that easy for them. We don't want them to shuffle through dozens of episodes to try to find the right one. Send them to a place, whether it's a landing page specifically for new podcasters, or maybe you are hand selecting episodes like Sid does, but we can't always hand select our episodes to people who might just discover us on their own, right? So we got to try to make it easy for them. I think even at the beginning of our shows, just a one line, hi to all of our new listeners. If you're new to this show, this might not be your best show to start with. Here's where I think you should start. Just give them that and keep moving. Right? Like, you don't have to harp on it. You don't have to take up a ton of time. But when you say that hello, like when I say, good morning again, Podcasting Morning Show, and I do my little intro, I could quickly just say, and if you're a new listener to the Podcasting Morning Show, go check out our favorite section on podcastingmorningshow.com. And then keep going. But that one quick line could make a huge difference and convert somebody who's just stopping by into a regular listener. Great conversation today, everybody. Thank you for being here. And tomorrow we're covering all the headlines around the world of podcasting, all the ones that we think you as an independent DIY podcaster would want to hear about and want to hear our thoughts and opinions on. So come join us 8 a.m. Eastern at podcastingmorningshow.com/join us. And if you want to support the show, podcastingmorningshow.com/support, and you can make some kind of financial contribution to this show if it's been of service to you. So until tomorrow, make it a great day, everybody. Take care.